Hello guys, welcome to Sunflower Angel Lotus. How are you today? Today we're going to dive deeper into karmic relationships, love or lust. In my spiritual awakening, I was new to the game. I would say I was new to the game in like dating men. In high school, I dated girls. I didn't date men. I was afraid, and we'll get into that later. But anyway, my first karmic relationship in my spiritual awakening was, the divine teaching me through love. Through relationships with individuals, people, I guess you could say. I was taught through, going through relationships with men in many different situations. So that really taught me a lot about myself and my spiritual awakening. My first karmic relationship was a friends with benefits, and at the time, I was like 19, going on 20, and still, innocent in a way and a little naive. And in that relationship, my first relationship with him, Nick, was friends with benefits, and the funny thing was he was the only one that was benefiting in that relationship, really. And I had to learn the hard way. When you first get in, when I was first in that relationship, you get into the first feeling of feeling like a rush of lust and a kid in a candy shop and your first crush with a guy, and you feel like this is it. You feel like this is your person, And when I first met him, it was like, this is new. This is honestly a little magical. And it was, he has a cancer turning things much bigger into a fantasy and not staying in reality. So, making things better than what they really are, or hyping a person up more than what they really are. But not to get too deep, I first met him at work, and most of my lessons come through people, and they come through the workplace. And they do not always come through the workplace, but they mainly come through the workplace. Sometimes they'll come at, through my personal life as well. They'll come into my personal life as well. And sometimes lessons will be also in my personal life. So it's not always just work, if you know what I mean. So I'm not always learning at work. I've learned through other situations in life. So, whether that be, personal life, work life, social life, me individually. But let's not get off subject. But he was the kind of person that when I first met him, Nick, he had a mask on, and the mask was his charm, a fake persona of his confidence. Deep down, he didn't really like me. We didn't really talk much. We never really got deep into conversation. When I first met him, I was just so bogged into him, and putting all my time and attention into him. and always texting him. He was always on my mind. And he had his own charm, you know, like his own confidence, but a little conceited. And honestly, like, he was very like, yeah, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I have to show you, and this is what this is. Like, that's how his personality was to me. It was very outgoing, just a little witty, but more like a playboy, just a little bit. But yeah, he was a fuckboy. You know, in the relationship with Nick, when I first met him at work, we're going to call it Right Packer. In my spiritual awakening, you know, relearning about myself and how to interact with people and how to treat myself, and really how to learn between love, lust, and choosing myself was really the hardest part in this lesson, you know. So when I first met him, you know, I thought we were very compatible and, you know, right on the target. But I knew deep down the whole time he was a time waster. He wasn't someone that was real. You know, we never talked about anything real, you know. We never spent any time together, except for maybe a couple times outside of work when I went to his place and I gave him blowjobs, but we never had any sex. And like I said, when I first got to his place, we were watching TV and we were laying in bed and he had his arm around me. And we were laying just a little bit awkwardly, you know, laying down. And we were watching TV and he really didn't stare at me. He was watching TV basically the whole time. You know, unless I said something, he would look down a little bit. But other than that, we were watching TV for like 10 minutes. And then we finally got to it, you know. He asked for some head. I was like, okay. And, you know, that was it. That happened a couple times. But other than that, I mean, all our interactions were at work, you know, and on text. So, him just feeding me lies, wasting my time. And I really had to decide to choose myself or to keep trying to chase after him. And eventually, I stopped working there, and I don't know what happened to him since. But through that first lesson, it was really heartbreaking. You know, you always think the first guy you meet is the one for some reason. Or at least that for me. I don't know why I have that issue, but I don't know. I don't know why. It might just be like a toxic mommy and daddy issue. I'm still healing. But to this day, I never hated him. You know, Nick was somebody that was special to me, you know. But I knew that what we had was just a situationship, a fling at work, you know, a lesson, you know. And whether I chose to look at as, that's up to me. But I wanted to share that with you guys, and not to be too in line, but you know, that was my first interaction with lust. I did love him in a way, but it was lust. It wasn't really love, and instead of me chasing, I should have chose myself. And I did in the end, but it was too late. I didn't learn the lesson in time. So, you know, if you don't learn the lesson in time, you still have to repeat the lesson. So eventually, at that time, I was staying at my studio apartment. Well, no, I was still living at home. Got into a fight with my family, left the job, right, and then when I was staying at my studio apartment in Kansas, Olathe on Poplar Street, I got back in touch with him on Snapchat. For some reason, I was still obsessed with him, you know. I was single, you know, still talking, mingling around, dating, still focusing on me mainly, you know. Or, you know, halfway, as we say, you know. I didn't learn a lesson fully, so I still had to learn again, but that'll be a later story, and we'll dive deeper. But this one wasn't long. It was only like a year and a half, so, you know, not too much to go into deep to it. And, you know, it was at work, and we didn't hang out that much, but anywho. I've had so much making these videos for you guys, and I've enjoyed you on this platform of Sunflower Angel Lotus. And and I hope you guys subscribe and like to my channel. I will bring you more videos, and I do love this, and this is new for me, so I hope you guys enjoy the video. And I really want to put stories behind these so you guys get a better visual of what I'm talking about and just understand me better. I love you guys, and I'm Jada Evans. E for everyone, and I love you. Have a good night. Catch you on the next one.